All right, so Bulls basketball is finally back. We've got the Bulls taking on the Hawks later this evening. Make sure you tune into that. Make sure you check out BetUS, the sponsor of this video, for great bonuses if you want to place any wagers on the game. But as the NBA gets back up and running tonight as we close out the season, I wanted to address this debate that has been going on for some time now. And that's how good is this Bulls team relative to their competition in the Eastern Conference, most notably the big names like the Bucks, the Sixers, the Heat, and the Nets. And yes, I include the Nets because even though they have fallen in the standings all the way down to the 8th seed, Kevin Durant is going to be coming back soon. Ben Simmons is going to start playing again. Kyrie Irving, vaccine mandates are likely going to be lifted in the New York area, so he'll now be able to play in home games. So the Brooklyn Nets are still going to be a formidable team in the East. Now, the reason I wanted to address this topic is because I saw a lot of Bulls fans reacting to some comments that Jeff Van Gundy made about the Bulls on the Low podcast the other day, in which he stated that although, yes, the Bulls have exceeded expectations this season, they still aren't better than the Heat, Bucks, Nets, or Sixers. Here's the tweet from Daniel Greenberg in which he called this out, and I'll leave a link to the Low podcast in the description in case you guys want to listen to it. But anyway, in today's video, we're going to be taking a deeper look at how the Bulls stack up against some of these teams in the East and whether there is any validity to these claims that have been made by Jeff Van Gundy. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I think the first thing that needs to be called out is that this tweet from Daniel Greenberg was taken a bit out of context. Don't get me wrong, I love Daniel Greenberg. I even had him as a guest on the channel during the offseason, but it's important to know that throughout this season, Jeff Van Gundy has actually said a lot of positive things about the Bulls and has praised the work that Billy Donovan has put in, has praised the high level of play from DeMar DeRozan, has spoken very highly of all the moves the front office has made this offseason. So it's not like Jeff Van Gundy is just hating on the Bulls or that he's, an even known hater of this team, unlike guys like Nick Friedel or Tim Bontemps who provide lazy analysis on the Bulls. So that's important to remember. The other thing is, I see a lot of Bulls fans claiming you have to be out of your mind to think that all four of these teams are better than the Chicago Bulls, which I'm not saying all four of these teams are in fact better than the Bulls are. I think that when the Bulls are fully healthy, they can compete with the best of these guys and would give them a run for their money in a playoff series. But it's not unfounded or outlandish to make this claim because really, when you look at each of these teams, the Heat, the Sixers, the Nets, the Bucks, aside from the Heat, the other three teams would have the best player in a playoff series. I love DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine, but let's not try and kid ourselves here that they're not better than Giannis, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid. They're just not. Those guys are arguably the top three players in the league right now, and aside from them being the best players in a playoff series if they were to face the Bulls, the fact of the matter is the Bulls simply wouldn't have an answer for these guys given their size. Yes, we've got Tristan Thompson, which is great. I like that move, and it gives them some added size and depth in the front court, but Thompson isn't a game changer for us that will be able to lock down Giannis or Embiid or Kevin Durant. On top of that, it's not like each of these teams just have those superstars. No, they also have other key star level or fringe star level players. The Bucks with Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, the Sixers with James Harden, up and coming players like Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, the Nets with Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving. Like, I know some Bulls fans aren't gonna like hearing this, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of dislikes on this video, and that's fine, but I think it's important to realistically understand the high level of competition at the top of the Eastern Conference. And don't worry, I'll also talk about, where people like Jeff Van Gundy are wrong in their belief that all of these teams are better than the Bulls, but it's important to be practical how the Bulls stack up against these teams. Keep in mind, aside from the Nets, the Bulls haven't beaten any of these teams. Granted, they also were not fully healthy for most of the times that they played these teams, but the Heat made good work of the Bulls in the two games they faced each other. The Bulls didn't have an answer for their zone defense. The Sixers, the Bulls have played 3 times and have lost all of them. Again, I know injuries, right? But the Bulls have been injured for some of that, but the Sixers were also shorthanded for a couple of those games as well. And then the Bucks actually, the Bulls played pretty well in that game. That was, of course, the infamous uncalled for foul that Grayson Allen committed on Alex Caruso, which Caruso has yet to play in a game ever since. And even though the Bulls were shorthanded that game without Lonzo Ball, and actually, now that I think about it, Zach Lavine was out of that game as well, and so was Javonte Green. Like, we had to start Tyler Cook in that game, for crying out loud. That game, though, did give me confidence over a team that the Bulls could beat like the Bucks. So look, all I'm trying to say is that we need to be realistic on our expectations of this team. And for someone to say that the Bucks, Nets, Sixers, and the Heat are better than the Bulls is not outlandish. I don't agree with it, but it isn't outlandish. Where I don't agree is on a couple of matters. Surprisingly, I actually think that after the Ben Simmons trade, I am less concerned about the Sixers, and I wouldn't necessarily say the Bulls are better than the Sixers, but I could see them beating them in a 7-game series, which I can't believe I'm saying because Joel Embiid always kills the Bulls, and especially Vucevic. But I'm not afraid of someone like James Harden, because he hasn't been as good this season, and we've already seen guys like Ayo, Lonzo, or even Caruso locking him down and limiting his scoring ability. Despite the Heat being a great team, and they handled the Bulls well in the first 2 matchups, I still think the Bulls have the best player in a 7-game series in DeMar DeRozan. I think when the Bulls are fully healthy, they are more talented than the Heat are. When you look at guys like Lavine, Vucevic, Lonzo, DeRozan versus someone like Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. Honestly, the 2 teams that I am concerned about the most are the Nets and the Bucks, and it's primarily because they have 2 of the best players in the world. Not only that, but the Bulls just simply don't match up well against both of these teams when you look at their depth, their defensive abilities, and size. Yes, the Nets are a better defensive team now, or in theory, they should be anyway by adding Ben Simmons, but the Bucks and the Nets, because of their length and size on the defensive end, that's going to be a challenge for the Bulls and their otherwise elite offense. The Bulls aren't going to be able to match up well against a front court of Middleton, Giannis, and Ibaka, or the size and athleticism of Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, hell, even LaMarcus Aldridge or Andre Drummond. Like, the Nets are a big team, and they have strong scoring in the backcourt as well with Kyrie Irving and Seth Curry. Anyway, I'm not saying that the Bulls would get destroyed by either of these teams if they were to face off in the playoffs. I think that they would make it a very competitive series, and I wouldn't even be shocked if they actually beat these teams. Like, I think the Bulls have shown, when fully healthy, they're able to compete with any team in the league. But if we're honest with ourselves, there is a lot of competition in the East, and it's not a hot take or simply just a dumb take to say that the Bulls have exceeded expectations, but they're still not better than these 4 teams. What's an idiotic take is to say this Bulls team was going to miss the playoffs, or the play-in for that matter, and that DeMar DeRozan was the worst offseason signing. That is just stupidity at its finest and lazy analysis. So again, I don't agree with Jeff Van Gundy, because I do think the Bulls should be given more credit, especially since they're currently tied for first in the East, and doing so while being shorthanded. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. How do you think the Bulls stack up against these top Eastern Conference teams? And realistically, how do you think the Bulls would fare in a playoff series against them? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget the Bulls have a game tonight. Until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.